Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
They say that everything is bigger in Texas. The ranches, the 10-gallon hats, and the hair that they hide, and even the state capitol just down the road from tonight's venue. And so it is with tonight's venue, the Circuit of the Americas, home to this weekend's United States Formula One Grand Prix. Not only does it have a 101-foot rise into Turn 1, that's now known as Big Red, and named after a business icon and one of the first investors in the circuit, the late Red McCombs, but it also holds the Formula One attendance record with over 440,000 spectators descending upon Elroy Road in 2022. Like I said, everything is bigger. Welcome everyone to season number 10 of the Ray Esports Racing League, presented by Grassroots Motorsports Magazine and Paddock Motorsports. And I'm Greg Ginsberg, and we've got Morgan Burkhardt joining me in the commentary booth, along with Josh Wilkie in the virtual production trailer, bringing you all the great views of tonight's action. And for those of you joining us for the first time, we've got 4 classes here in the Ray Esports Racing League. We've got Spec Racer Ford and Spec Miata, as well as 2 touring car classes, which you're going to see tonight, featuring the Volkswagen Jetta TDI Cup car in one of the classes and the Toyota GR86 Cup car in the other. Each one of our 4 classes, they race 6 times over the course of our 9-week season. And this is week number 5, and tonight we have 2 20-minute races on tap. First up is going to be the Spec Miatas, which you can see out on track currently, and they are going to be running their 4th of 6 races this season, followed by those touring cars with their 3rd. And rest assured, we'll be bringing back some amazing Spec Racer Ford action next week when they reconvene at Sebring International Raceway. And so, good evening, Morgan, and welcome to the Circuit of the Americas.
Good evening, Greg. This has got to be one of the biggest tracks in the United States, even bigger than Road America, a place like that, where as we see Murphy Nichols going down that long back straight, which especially in our MX-5 Cup cars and our touring cars later on tonight will be a bit of an eternity, and one of the big racing looking points as we get to the races tonight.
Yeah, very wide track for these Miatas, and this track it's really an amalgam of many different types of tracks. There are some long straightaways, as we just mentioned. There are some very tight corners here that will challenge these drivers, as you see there as Nichols goes through turn 15 and 16, and then things open up and you have these big long sweepers here. Something to really challenge the drivers, but this big wide course, it really, especially for these MX-5s, and I think we'll see it in the touring car classes as well, really brings along some good door-to-door, side-by-side racing. But let's do this, Morgan, as we've got Murphy Nichols coming out onto the front straight, coming out of turn 20 here at COTA. Why don't we follow him along, and we'll let young Murphy give us tonight's track guide with your assistance here of Circuit of the Americas.
Alrighty then, as we're coming up very steep uphill into turn 1, you can really use that to your advantage. Brake super deep. Make sure to get the car rotated and not hit the big sausage on the apex of the corner, get it all loose. But coming back down the hill into the first really fast sweeping section we've got here is the S's. Really going to try and nail those little orange triangles you see as the apex markers. Don't want to hit them because it'll pop the car up 4 or 5 feet in the air. So just keeping it tight through the double right-hander, swinging the car back to the right, trying to nail these curbs again, back into the left, and then up the hill using that elevation to help slow the car down. Nice straight lining through the chicane there, and now you get a little bit of a break coming down the hill again. The car bottoms out a little bit through that dogleg left, and then into the slowest, most important corner on the track. We got that hairpin here. It is a very wide entry, so you turn in and you can't really see the corner because it's behind the A pillar. You can't really see where you're going. And really, really important to get a long run down this back straight. And if you are watching, you can probably pull out a book, read a chapter before the time that we get to the corner at the end of it, as Murphy is getting a nice draft off of the driver in front of him. We're starting to get down to the braking zone. Got to pick out your brake marker from the markers on the catch fencing on driver's right. Brake as late as you can, get it down into that apex. Not going to use all of the runoff there because it is very fragile with 1x incident points. And as we're coming into this right-hander, double right-hander here, double apex corner, into the infield section, which is one of the most technical spots on this track. Very hard to do right, and there's a lot of different lines that you can do. Murphy chooses the swing out wide line, carrying a lot of speed as we got Josh Justice off the road in front of him, and back into this triple apex, sometimes even a quadruple apex right-hander that will round out our lap into turn 19. We come here, nice tight line through the quadruple right, bring it back to the right-hand side into turn 19, the penultimate corner. Not using too much road on the exit, kept it all 4 tires on the road, braking uphill slightly into the final corner. Can be really greedy with the curb on the inside, but not too much on the outside, and a good exit down the front straight. That was a very tidy lap from Murphy, but go ahead, Greg.
No, I was just going to say, let's see if he comes across the line and improves upon his previous time. He does. But he came into that last lap second fastest in the session behind Miles Crabb. Does not advance, however. Miles Crabb in that red and white number 131 machine, he was on the pit lane. He's coming out to take a couple last stabs at the track before we go racing with our 20-minute race. This is a 15-minute qualifying session, Morgan, and we've got about 4 minutes left. And and I was going to say, when you were doing the track guide, there are so many things, that whereas we watch Megan Overstreet here coming through the S's that are so difficult about this track. When you come into those S's, the 3, 4, 5, and 6 complex, those decrease in radius on each one of the corners, and you could actually see when we watched Murphy how he was having to dial in more steering input through each one of those corners, that just as you want to be picking up more speed and carrying more speed through there, you end up having to fight the car if you do, because it just gets so much tighter.
Exactly. This track is a huge test of a driver's patience, and you can't get on the throttle too early, and it's not as big of an issue in slightly lower powered cars like these Mazda MX-5 Cup cars. But once you get to like a GT car, a GT4, GT3 car, if you light up the rears, you're going to go around right before the corner is ending, because you're adding more throttle and you're adding more steering input, and suddenly you run out of grip to use that with. So this track is extremely difficult because of the way that the corners are shaped, and it's all really wonky, and certain corners lead into other corners, so you really have to string them all together. And if you miss the first apex or the first 2 apexes, it's really hard to get back on track.
Yeah, you end up really behind the car, behind the track, and you're just trying to fight to get all 4 wheels. out of the paint and onto the pavement. Hey, so Morgan, let's quickly take a look and see where we are in the standings, both in MX5 and also in Spec Racer 4 Gen 3. We're going to start off with the Spec Racer Fords, who are not out racing here this week. As I mentioned, they'll be joining us next week at Sebring, where last week at Laguna Seca, they had their third race of the season. Megan Overstreet took, I believe, what was her very first win in the Esports Racing League over Miles Crabb. Margin of victory, 25 hundredths of a second, with Josh Justice, another Spec Race Ford racer, finishing in third, with Andrew Wozencroft, who started sixth, finishing fourth, and Corey Heffron finishing in fifth. And if we take a look at the point standings, well, you're still sitting right in there in the catbird seat. It's going to be a little hard for you to take a championship, though, if you're in the commentary booth with me. Miles Crabb currently has a 2-point advantage after 3 rounds over Megan Overstreet, and then we've got you over at 46 points, Josh Justice at 42, and then Andrew Wozencroft and Wayne Buttermore currently running 5th and 6th, and you can see it's very close right after that. So let's jump over to Spec Miata, as we've got just a little bit more than a minute remaining here in qualifying. And in Spec Miata, it was a big night for Megan Overstreet. She actually went 2 for 2 last week and took the win in Spec Miata over Trenton Kramer. The margin of victory about 9/10 of a second, with Miles Crabb finishing in third. And then Murphy Nichols, who we just followed along, he was our pole sitter at Laguna Seca. He finished in fourth. And Lewis Lockshine, who started 9th on the field, rounded out your top 5. And so we've got the point standings up there right now. Megan Overstreet currently your points leader with 52. Then we've got you, Morgan, at 50. And currently 4 points back from Overstreet is Lewis Lockshine. And Lockshine is just only a single point up on Trenton Kramer, and then another point back to Miles Crabb. So very tight running here in Spec Miata. And I wouldn't be surprised to hear after 20 minutes if we see some changes in the point standings here this evening.
Yeah, for sure. COTA is one of those tracks that can really spice it up. It throws a big wrench in the works, because as much as it is technical, it's a very fast track. And with how big of a hole these open top Miatas put, like, they poke a really big hole in the air. And all of these long straights, the draft is incredibly powerful. So I really would not be surprised with how close it is in qualifying, especially up at the top, if we get a 4 or 5 car pack in the race tonight. And the other thing I wanted to highlight is, because this qualifying order that you're seeing on your screen here is not completely accurate and representative of what everybody's actually been able to do, because this track is it's what I call a 1x simulator. So the track limits here are very inviting, that you can just kind of drive over the curves, drive over the white lines. But if you even put more than half a car over some of these curbs, it'll give you a 1x and immediately invalidate the lap.
Yeah, I mean, we can take a look right now. Andrew Wozencroft and Beans Forster, who we typically see up at the top of the order, those drivers have put in 4 laps and now almost 5 laps and 3 laps respectively, and have not been able to set times because they have had off tracks. Reed Shannabrook in the 14 car, same story for him. And so this has been an issue there. Wozencroft there now finally puts in a lap time, and he jumps up to 11th, as he just, I think, wanted to get something in the book so that he wasn't starting at the rear end of a 20-car field. And so, obviously those things don't come into play when the drivers are out racing. And I think what we also saw here, Morgan, is, at least when we joined qualifying, that a lot of these racers, they weren't working together. They weren't working in packs using the draft. And, we saw Murphy Nichols during his qualifying session, his qualifying lap, how much that draft assisted him on that very long back straight coming out of the hairpin at 11, making the run down to 12. And that, I think, is during the race, is probably going to keep a lot of these drivers in very close proximity.
Yeah, exactly, Greg. This pack is going to stay very close together. And I think part of the reason why we didn't see a whole lot of cars drafting together during qualifying was because like we said, it's a 1x simulator. So
Yeah.
when you're following close behind, your vision is gone, so you can't see where the corner is. And if you're trying to be really precise with where you're putting the car, sometimes that'll hurt you more than it'll help.
All right, so checkered flag is out on the session, and we just saw Jameson Huffman, I think, put in his final flying lap, moves up to third in qualifying. But Morgan, as we get ready to run down the starting grid, and we'll have our cars gridding up here in just a moment, take a look at how close our front row was in qualifying. For a moment there, it was only 13 thousandths of a second separating Miles Crab and Murphy Nichols. Crab on his last lap, I think, stretched it out a little bit to put in about 3/10 of a margin between he and Murphy Nichols. But again, I think once they go racing, all bets are off, and you're not gonna see even certainly that big an advantage at the front of the field.
No, for sure. I think it's going to be interesting to see who picks which strategies to come out on top in this. It's a 20-minute sprint, so you do have relatively a lot of time, but since this track is so long, you only get 9 opportunities to see a corner. So it'll be interesting to see if the top 2, if they've actually got a pace advantage over the field, if they're going to try and break away, or we're going to see some of the people 3rd, 4th, and 5th try and move back to the front and make up for their qualifying positions.
Yeah, and whether people like a Beans Forrester or an Andrew Wozencroft can work their way through the field early on and get up to that lead pack. All right, so let's take a look at the starting order for tonight's first race of the evening here in the Ray Esports Racing League, with a qualifying time of gotcha, I gotta break out my glasses. 2:31, 163. It's Miles Crab driving the number 131 machine. Starting to his right, going up big red, will be Murphy Nichols, with Jameson Huffman and Megan Overstreet making up row number 2. Trenton Kramer and John Vogel will start 5th and 6th, with Lewis Lockshine and Jim Brewster making up row number 4. Then we've got Josh Justice and the Ray in Ray Esports Racing, Stevie Ray. They'll start 9th and 10th, with Andrew Wozencroft and Charles Vaccaro starting on row number 6, 11th and 12th. Then we've got Michael Snow and Andrew Love starting lucky 13th and 14th. Joaquin Effinger will start 15th, with Mark Sherman 16th. Then we've got Wayne Buttermore and Beans Forster, with Reed Shannabrook and Matthew Snow making up row number 10. And we'll see. Right now, I don't see Shannabrook or Snow in the session, Morgan, as the safety car, the pace car, is starting to roll out. So they may be starting from the pit lane. We'll have to watch those two, and whether or not they check into the session. But the pace lap now here along this track is underway, and since it is a shorter pace lap, they're not going over the entire length of the course. Let me quickly talk about our sponsor for tonight's first race, and that's Grassroots Motorsports Magazine. Built for the true sports car enthusiast, Grassroots Motorsports has one mission: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it's online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print or in person, the racers and builders, the car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports, will take you behind the scenes and show you how to make your car better. Along the way, they'll give you a taste of everything else this hobby has to offer, from 1,000 horsepower track monsters to cool street cars built in driveways. And they also maintain a collection of staff-built project cars, because hands-on technical articles aren't typed behind a desk, they're scribbled down in the garage. To not only read but become part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. Hey, I got it done before the race started. That's pretty cool.
That was very impressive, Greg.
Thank you.
Very, very fast speaking and no stumbles.
All right, well, at least a couple stumbles. All right, pace car now onto the pit lane as Miles Crab and Murphy Nichols lead the field through turn 20, and they get ready for the start. Interesting thing about this track, the start line a little bit further down to your right here, but very early finish line coming out of turn 20, and green flag is now in the air, and Megan Overstreet had fallen a little bit off the back of Murphy Nichols, maybe trying to get a little bit of a run up the hill. We see moving all the way to the inside Lewis Lockshine, and now we have Jameson Huffman coming all the way down the inside as well, and he will take over the lead as they run down the hill and over towards turn 2. And so far, Morgan, it looks like pretty clean there coming out of turn 1. It's usually a big bottleneck for the racers, going from that wide entry to very narrow exit.
Yeah, we're already starting to go single file. I believe Lewis Lockshine got around at the apex of turn 1, but everybody else is pretty much uniform, getting in line, going single file. Looks like Jameson made a big power move down to the inside into turn 1, was able to force Miles and Murphy's hand. But like we said, it's a big pack right. Ooh, Charles Vaccaro goes off in the background. Unfortunate there. I think cold tires kind of bite really hard in this car when you're trying to apply throttle through high load corners.
Yeah, it looks like both Wozencroft as well as Vaccaro getting hung out there, and Vaccaro is going to take his car back to the pits. So not a great start to his evening for Charles Vaccaro here, as the field now making their way out of the hairpin for the first time onto that very long back straight. Rises up, drops back down, and you see there a pretty big gap from Joaquin Effinger in the number 7700 car up to Andrew Love in the 945. It's going to be very difficult for those last 4 cars to get back up to this lead pack here, as we've got John Vogel takes a quick look to the inside. Oh, and there's contact between Josh Justice and I think that's Stevie Ray in the blue, red, and silver machine. They're now going to fall to the back of the pack, as they got a little aggressive going into 12 here, Morgan.
Yeah, and it is like I said earlier in the lap guide, the only markers for the braking zone there are on the catch fencing on driver's right. So you really have to be aware of looking in your peripheral vision as you're coming into the corner, which can be a very difficult thing when you're focused on somebody in front of you, especially on lap 1. But we've got a nice kind of a loose six car breakaway from the field here, a big pack starting to form. Really, Megan Overstreet is pulling John Vogel into this lead pack led by Jameson Huffman.
There we go, and we'll see if Stevie Ray heads to the pit lane. Looked like he had a lot of damage there from that impact with Josh Justice. And yeah, John Vogel just on the edge of the draft there, trying to get pulled up the hill by Megan Overstreet. Oh, as the 131 of Crab tries to come underneath Murphy Nichols going into turn 1 and cannot get the move done. And Miles Crab, who started out on the pole, now finds himself back in 4th position, as Trenton Kramer in the 444 machine, he manages to sneak by the 131 car. And Kramer, who had a great run last weekend, he's all over the back right now of Murphy Nichols.
Yeah, exactly. That's how quickly things can change here. You lose that little bit of momentum from going side by side, and all of a sudden you lose 2 or 3 spots out of it. So it'll be interesting to see if Trenton and Miles and Murphy can really start to work together going down these straights to rein in the almost 8-10 gap that Jameson Huffman has pulled over the field. The thing that I've learned in testing with this car is you get draft all the way back until 1.8 seconds. It's not a lot from 1.8 seconds, but you start to gain half a mile an hour. So the sweet spot where you really want to be is about 1.1 to 1 second back, and that is where you can really start to gain on the car in front. But we're seeing Trenton Kramer's pushing Murphy Nichols down the straight. The gap at the start of it was about 0.8 of a second, and as they get into the braking zone, it's about half.
Yeah, it's about half of that now, about 0.5 seconds as they come into turn 12 and start to make their way again through that very tight little stadium section here. And that I figured probably within 2 laps or so, that advantage that Jameson Huffman had built up would probably be gone. And you can see now even Megan Overstreet, who when they came across the start finish line on the last lap was about 10 car lengths back from, at that time, Trenton Kramer. She is now within just a couple of car lengths of the lead group. And now let's take a look here. This is Beans Forster, who started at the tail end of the field, tail end Charlie. He has now made his way around Brewster and Snow and Love and Lockshine and Effinger, has now worked himself up to 7th position, 11 positions gained. And he's got a long way to go, I think, until he gets to Trenton Kramer now, who apparently did have an issue as we were watching. Yeah, let's take a look and see exactly what happened to Trenton here, who was battling it out for third, and now he finds himself all the way back in sixth position. Let's see what happens here with Miles Crabbe.
And I think it happened going into turn number 19 on the previous lap, where Trenton Kramer, it looked kind of just like he went straight into the penultimate corner.
Yeah,
which
he never turned at 19.
It's interesting. He might have gotten in deep and did that to save himself and the competitors and not end anybody's race. But smart driving there. Jameson Huffman gets a little bit wide through the chicane section. Murphy Nichols has a big run on him going down the hill. He's gonna try and look down to the inside for the lead into the very sharp hairpin. Nichols later on the brakes. Come on, the words will come out eventually. And Jameson Huffman track extending on the exit. And looks like he's just going to sit in behind and start to push Nichols away from Miles Crabbe. But we have a new leader here.
There you go. So Murphy Nichols is your new leader with Jameson Huffman running second. And there you go. Miles Crabbe, who a few moments ago was sitting back in fourth position, now finds himself in third. And he's going to be able to close things down even more if Jameson and Murphy can't get this figured out. Because it looks like as they came into the hairpin, or that's not the hairpin, pardon me, maybe Jameson did not feel comfortable with Murphy's pace there.
Yeah, Jameson just went right back around him, pushed him down the straight, and then just kind of poked out right before the braking zone and outbroke him. So right back into the lead goes Jameson Huffman. But a virtue of that is it's brought Miles Crabbe, and Megan Overstreet a little bit closer to this lead duo.
And it even looks like Jameson getting a little bit defensive there, coming out of turn 18, coming out of that triple apex Grand Plaza section. And Overstreet getting very loose coming out of 19. She's been spending more time, I think, trying to gather up the rear of the car. She's got a very loose setup in that machine tonight.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these cars. I know my personal setup that I use when I drive this Mazda MX-5 Cup car is it's a very loose setup because this car likes to kind of drift through corners. It likes to have a whole lot of slip angle, and when the track gets hot, when the car is cold, it's a handful to drive. So you really have to kind of play the long game. And if it's a longer race like we've got tonight, 20 minutes doesn't sound very long, but when you get 6-7 minutes into this race, sometimes 8 or 9 minutes into this race, it'll start to tighten up, and we may see Megan have that virtue here when the tires start to get warm up to optimal temperature, getting the car back to be comfortable. She might be able to work back into this lead pack as Trenton Kramer was passed by Beans Forster and Jim Brewster as he's fallen a little bit further back into this pack.
Yeah, so definitely some troubles there for the 444 machine, who, Kramer had such a great start to tonight's race. We are almost halfway through this 20-minute race, just a touch over halfway. We've got 11 minutes remaining here. Your leaders, Jameson Huffman, Murphy Nichols, Miles Crabbe, as we continue to look here at the battle now for what is 7th position with Jim Brewster in that reddish-orange number 933 machine, Trenton Kramer in the 444 directly behind. Both of those drivers now have really separated themselves out from Lewis Lockshine and Andrew Love. Almost 3.5 seconds back to the 124 machine after Lockshine had that great run up the hill into turn 1 on the first lap. Unfortunately, didn't have such a great run down the hill out of turn 1. And he finds himself in 9th position, currently having started 7th.
Yeah, it's definitely a good charge back through the pack, and something tells me he's not quite done yet. He's setting pretty good lap times, so we will see. It's if these lead 3 start to keep fighting, as we saw Miles Crabbe and Murphy Nichols go side by side through the hairpin on this lap. They start to fight more aggressively, because we haven't even hit the halfway mark yet. If they're going to start to fight a little bit more aggressively come the last 2 or 3 laps in this race, the drivers behind they're separated out of the draft a little bit, but it's not out of the mistake range. So if a car goes around, if a car gets put wide, if they go side by side through a section, a second is not a whole lot for that.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw where Beans Forster came out of turn 20, and Forster had on the previous lap run the fastest lap of the race at a 2:32.45. This time by, he is still clocking in at about 45 hundredths of a second faster than our leaders, Huffman and Nichols. Whether that's going to be enough to get him into that lead pack and in contention by the time this race is over. As you said, Morgan, you know, it should turn out to be about a 9-lap race, and we're currently working lap number 5. He may be able to close it down in time here to contend for a podium. Ooh, we just saw Murphy Nichols having like a brake lockup there coming up through turn 7.
And that could be when you pop. Miles Crab is going to look up the inside. He did a very good job to set that up coming out of the S's. Murphy's going to have to concede the position. And Miles Crab is now into second place, but they are a whopping 0.8 back from our leader. But it doesn't mean much because they're about to be on the back straight.
Yeah, and look at the speed that Crab carried through the hairpin at 11. He closed up a lot of that, almost knocked a quarter of a second off just coming out of the hairpin here, and is only within about a half second at this point.
Yeah, he took a much shallower entry into the corner, cut off a lot of distance, was able to get the car squatted and rotated at the middle, and got a really good exit out of it. So if I'm Murphy Nichols right now, I've just watched that. I'm going to try and replicate that the next lap.
Exactly.
I'm going to try and learn a little bit.
Yep, do the exact same thing, make up a little bit of ground there, and you can see as we're on board right now with Megan Overstreet, who was our winner last week at Laguna Seca, and she is now started to close things back up onto Murphy Nichols, who started second tonight. But I think you said it, Morgan, it looks like that car is starting to finally come in for her about halfway through this race after she was definitely dealing with a very loose machine early on here. But everybody else, Vogel and Beans Forster, continuing to close up behind.
Yeah, no, this pack is really starting to close down. The effect of the draft is we had that lead pack separate out for just a little bit. Everybody's had a little bit more toe, so it's compressed them all. Now we've got 2 packs of 2 at the front, and they're still both very much in the draft with another pack of 2 right behind. So if I'm Miles right now, I'm gonna want to push James. Nope. I really shouldn't have said anything. Miles is gonna look down the inside into turn 1 on Jamison Huffman.
You know, that doesn't change that if you were Miles Crab, what you would have done. And Crab took a look down to the inside of Jamison Huffman. There might have been a little bit of contact there. Crab definitely got very loose on exit as he took a very shallow entry, and that allows Jamison Huffman to continue on in the lead. Should mention that Beans Forster once again resets fast lap, and Morgan, that last time by, he was over a second faster than any of our top 4.
Yeah, and as this top 4, they kept fighting. They're gonna keep fighting really hard. I have a feeling that was just the start of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg. I think this is only going to get a little bit more feistier as Miles Crab is going to go a little bit defensive here on Murphy Nichols into the hairpin. Whoa, big dive from Miles Crab on the brakes, really late, was able to get the move done on Jamison. Jamison's going to try the switchback, but does not have the overlap on the exit. Does get the better run out of the hairpin, and is he going to just go for the move on Miles Crab? And it looks like he's going to be just going for it. And it's going to 2 cars abreast is going to poke an even bigger hole for Murphy Nichols and Megan Overstreet.
Yeah, definitely. And so it wasn't so much Miles Crab getting defensive and trying to hold off Murphy Nichols as it was that he was looking to use that very shallow entry into the hairpin against, at the time, and now still our leader, Jamison Huffman, as Huffman is able to work by coming through turn 12 and back to the lead there. And now it's Crab and Nichols, and wow, look at that late move from Miles Crab coming underneath Murphy Nichols. And Nichols, I think he was definitely caught off guard there, Morgan.
Yeah, I think that move from Miles late on the brakes really surprised Murphy, and he tried to get on the throttle, get a really good run out of the corner, lit up the rear tires and got a little bit crossed up, but very, very dominant, very assertive move from Miles late on the brakes into a very unorthodox place on the track. So well done move from Miles Crab.
All right, and so that is going to move Megan Overstreet now up into third. Murphy Nichols back to fourth. And look at this, coming out of turn 20, Beans Forster now within about a little bit over a second and a half. But once again, Forster clocking in over a second faster than the drivers just up ahead. And I think, as you were saying, that the draft extends about 1.8 seconds. He's right at the tail end of the draft of our lead pack.
Yeah, I think we could have a 5, maybe even a 6-car tango here by the end of this race, because these lead four don't have any notion. It doesn't look to me like they're gonna stop fighting at all here. So
yeah, I would say their strategy is not to run away and hide. Their strategy is just to take whatever gets thrown at them as it gets thrown at them.
Right. Honestly, as a broadcaster and as a commentator, it's fine by me. It makes for a much greater spectacle. Murphy Nichols gonna look around the outside of the S's of Megan Overstreet, but thinks better of it and backs out. And there you go. Beans Forster's within a second of the draft of Murphy Nichols. So I think we just had another visitor to this lead pack here.
That's indeed. There he goes. So Beans Forster, who started off in 18th position, now finds himself up in 5th and just back from our leaders. And he's definitely pulling John Vogel along as well. And I'll tell you, just that one corner where Nichols went side by side with Overstreet, it really gave our two leaders gave them a bit of a chance to run away. Megan Overstreet, though, has somehow managed to reel them back in. Murphy Nichols a little bit further behind. Of course, it helps that Crab and Huffman were side by side going through turn 12, and it's now 3 wide going through turn 13.
That was very tight. That was very close, but they all come out the other side relatively unscathed. Megan and Murphy still side by side. Megan, I thought she was going to back out. Kind of keeps the nose in there, but thought better of it and slots back in behind. But Beans Forster is most definitely here now. So you see when Miles and Jamison go side by side and it kind of stacks the rest of the pack up, it shuffles back a fight. So when Jamison goes through the lead on Miles, everybody else sees an opportunity. They smell blood in the water, and then they kind of go frenzy mode and try and make a pass as well.
Yeah, and oh, look at this, as Forster takes a move down to the inside on Overstreet and overtakes her going into the final corner. And there you go, Morgan. It's not going to be 9 laps. It's going to be 8 laps. White flag is in the air here at Circuit of the Americas. Last lap, Jamison Huffman's your leader with Miles Crab, Murphy Nichols. Beans Forster now up into 4th position. And there we go, already here going into turn 1. It's Murphy Nichols over the apex curbing side by side with Crab as they come down the hill. That's going to give a bit of an opening to our leader, Jamison Huffman. He's going to want to try and build that up and minimize the effects of the draft coming out of the hairpin in about a half a lap here. Whoa, as Huffman takes a lot of curbing.
A big monster trucking over the curbs here, but if I'm Jamison Huffman right now, I am not going to be really comfortable. I would rather be a Murphy Nichols or a Beans Forster, having the huge benefit of a 2 or 3 car draft in front, and I can really ramp up onto the guys in front of them as they're compressing through the S's. Miles Crab gets a pretty good run. Gonna look down to the outside as we head down to this hairpin here. Jamison defends the inside. It looks like he's slowing down a little bit he lets Miles Crab go through. Miles will be leading us onto the back straight. A little bit of games here.
Yeah, a little bit of gamesmanship there. You know that that Huffman is looking to use that draft and outbreak him going into turn 12 as the whole line now shifts over drivers left as Miles Crab, rightfully so, getting defensive on this last lap down the long back straight here, heading towards turn 12 at Circuit of the Americas. And now making a break to the inside is Jamison Huffman. Murphy Nichols right on his bumper. And look at this, making a beeline for the corner. It's Beans Forster, and Murphy Nichols is the odd man out. He's going to spin the car. He's going to drop a number of positions as we've got Huffman. And Miles Crab has the rear end step out on him going through turn 8, through turn 17 here as they now come. Oh my gosh.
Wow. And Beans Forster and Megan Overstreet are still side by side as we're coming through this triple apex right-hander, whatever you want to call it. still side by side. Megan gets a little bit loose and goes around. Very unfortunate there, but we'll follow this lead pack back to the line. Looks like Jamison Huffman's got a fairly comfortable advantage over Miles Crab and Beans Forrester.
All right, and here they come down into the final corner with Jamison Huffman, your leader, Miles Crab second, Beans Forrester, who's had some internet connectivity issues, coming out of the final corner and taking the win. It is Jamison Huffman, your Spec Miata winner here tonight. Miles Crab finishing second. Beans Forrester working his way from 18th up to third. And on the last step of the podium, John Vogel will finish in fourth. Finishing fifth tonight will be Murphy Nichols, with Trenton Kramer finishing in sixth. Lewis Lockshine works up to seventh. Andrew Love eighth. Andrew Wozencroft ninth. Stevie Ray will round out your top 10. And it looks like Megan Overstreet, she checked out of the session on that last lap. And I'll tell you, I feel bad for Megan. It looked like Beans was maybe having some connectivity issues on that last lap, and he disappeared to the shadow realm. And when he came back, there was Megan Overstreet with a little bit of overlap. And
yeah, I think that incident between Megan and Beans was a virtue of Beans' car disappearing in the middle of a corner and then reappearing in Megan's car. So it does some wonky things when that occurs.
Yeah, unfortunate there, but that's the way iRacing deals with those types of things sometimes. All right, so we've got our top two finishers in the green room here, Morgan. Let's talk first to our second place finisher, Miles Crab.
Good evening, Miles. That was a hell of a race you had there. Starting on the pole here, what was really going to be your game plan going through this race?
I'm not gonna lie, get the lead and drive away. By myself, I could run what they were doing in the draft, so I was kind of I wasn't too concerned, frankly. And then once there's so few laps and there's plenty of overtaking opportunities, but all of them are, lead onto a straightaway or lead off of a straightaway, and it's so hard to make a pass that sticks. So it was just a constant scrap, and Jamison did a good job. I thought I had them. I thought I had enough of a run on the back straight on the last lap that I could at least have a nose ahead, and he was able to get up past me, and I had to concede and let him go, and then I locked up the rears, or actually lit the rears up through the stadium section and couldn't do anything. So good win to him. I was trying to pull a Morgan that race, frankly.
It definitely looked like a very close race, and more of a racecraft event than a pure pace event. So you played it well. You ended up coming home second here tonight, but who would you like to say thank you to?
Thanks as always to Stevie and y'all for broadcasting, and hi Mom, hi Dad, I'm sure y'all are watching. But yeah, thanks to everybody for being a clean race. I really tried to not make it a clean race. I doored Jamison and Murphy once, and that was 100% my fault, just holding the brakes too long through the apex. But it was a great race, and thank y'all for broadcasting.
Well, we appreciate that, and we hope to see you in the next race here tonight.
I'll be there.
All right, everybody, that's Miles Crab finishing second tonight in Spec Miata. Let's move on to our winner. It's been a while since we've had him in the commentary booth here, driving the number 89 Spec Miata, Jamison Huffman.
Do you want to do this one, Greg, or should I?
Sure, I can pick this one up. Because I figured it would just turn into a big laugh fest if you guys were.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, Greg.
Yeah, of course not. No, that's not why we bring you both into the commentary booth at the same time all the time. All right, so Jamison, why don't you tell us a little bit about your strategy going into this race? Obviously, you were quite the aggressor early on.
I kind of just wanted to get out in front because I realized in the practice the setup isn't going to work for the race because I would just overheat the tires in about 3 laps. It was really nice for qualifying, but into the race I knew they were going to overheat, so I just tried to get out in front and control the pace the entire time and not let anybody by me, which is actually ended up working, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Morgan and I, as we watched you coming into the hairpin for the very last time, we saw you what we thought was essentially concede the position to Miles to let him lead the pack and lead the field down towards turn 12. Is that kind of what your thinking was?
Yeah, I rolled off like 20% throttle down that entire straightaway to let miles go by. So, because I knew if I was there like even 3-4 tenths back and Murphy was gonna hit me, we were gonna get by him into braking. So
the next question I have, and probably one of the last ones, because he finished on the podium directly behind you, and I see him waiting in the green room. Unfortunately, not going to have time to bring him in here. But Beans Forster, who started off at the tail end of the field down in 18th, and I know you guys run on the radio together during the races. Did you see him coming? Did you know he was coming? Did you know that he was going to be a factor at the end of this race that you had to contend with?
I knew he was catching up because, like I said, we were running real slow with the pace that I was doing, basically drifting around COTA. And we knew he was going to be there, but we didn't expect him to be like right in my rear view, kind of hitting the apex of the hairpin at the end. So, yeah.
All right, so we've got to get things wrapped up here and move along to our second race of the evening, our touring car race, which I'm assuming that you're going to be running this evening. Anybody you'd like to thank tonight, Jameson?
I'd like to thank my parents and Morgan for the drift setup, even though he's a race car driver. But yeah, I won't be running the next race. My foot hurts too much.
That's right. Yeah, you've still got that foot injury.
Yeah, this wasn't a smart idea.
I'm sure you'll be second guessing yourself again tomorrow. All right, so Jameson Huffman, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Heal up, my friend, and hopefully we'll see you next week at Sebring.
Yep, thank you.
All right, there you go, everybody. Jameson Huffman, your winner tonight in Spec Miata. All right, so we're going to take a little bit of a break and to thank some of our partners and sponsors, but don't go away. We're going to be back here in just a moment with our next and final race of the evening. It's our touring cars, the GR86 Cup cars and the Volkswagen TDI Cup cars here from Circuit of the Americas, where you're watching the Esports Racing League. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Welcome back to a virtual circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas for season number 10 of the Ray Esports Racing League. I'm Greg Ginsburg along with Morgan Burkhardt, and we've got one more race to go here, Morgan, and this one may throw some interesting wrinkles. It is our touring car race where we've got two different classes racing at the same time, and for the most part with two very definite exceptions, one being a Mr. Caleb Patry there in the 198 Toyota, and Beans Forster, who we just saw make an amazing run in Spec Miata in the 231 machine, that are pretty much head and shoulders above the rest of the field. It looks like the majority of our Toyotas and the majority of our Volkswagens running very similar times here, although I suspect they're doing it in very different ways.
Yeah, I would assume that Miles Crabbe is kind of like we saw in the MX5 race earlier tonight, that he's just kind of going out on his own, and Seth Spullman maybe playing the draft a little bit, getting a really good draft lap, and he is up there contending with Miles, 4 thousandths of a second separating the two. So it's interesting what the draft can do on a qualifying lap.
Yeah, absolutely. There, yeah, 4 1,000ths of a second separating Miles Crabbe and Seth Spullman from the pole in what we're calling the T4 class. The T4 class are our Volkswagen TDI Cup cars, the front-wheel drive machines, a little on the boxy side, a lot on the understeery side, but pretty darn quick in a straight line here. They've got that straight line handling. The T3 cars, where Beans Forster now has just reset fast lap and put himself on pole provisionally. Those are our Toyota GR86 Cup cars, and these are they certainly are a little bit more nimble than the Volkswagens, Morgan, but with all the weight transfer that they do and how they react pretty poorly to I don't know, things like sausage curbs, it should be a challenging race for those drivers as well.
Yeah, and as we're seeing on the onboard here, where Beans Forster's having to put in a lot of counter steer through corners. He had a big slide coming out of the S's. That's that weight transfer, as you're going from left to right with no real transition in between. The car's having to go from all the load on the left side to all the load on the right side, and it doesn't really like that if you're a little bit rude to it. And you see there a little more oversteer as he's getting on the throttle trying to get a good run out of the hairpin. But an interesting thing that I want to highlight is Beans Forster and Caleb Patry, their margin between the two in qualifying is 0.000 of a second.
So we'll let iRacing figure out who should be on pole, and I don't know how the system determines that, whether it determines it based on the car number or when they checked into the session or what. But you know, the interesting thing is we're sitting on board with Beans Forster right now. Is, you know, you were talking about all the counter steer that he's putting in, but he's having a lot of issues getting the nose down the apexes on this car as well. That he's getting the rear end to step out usually just past the apex, but there's a ton of push in that car on corner entry as well.
And that is another quirk of this car, is that it tends to get really nose heavy under braking, and what that'll do is it'll lock up the rears. But since this car has ABS, you basically have no rear grip at that point. So you have to brake a little bit earlier and a little softer so as to avoid getting that rear lockup. And we may see that as people are trying to outbrake each other in the races here. We may see people start to get really loose or even go around under braking because of that. And as we were talking, Caleb Patry brakes our dead heat and goes about 3/10 faster than Beans Forster.
That's right. So Caleb Patry crosses the line 232.23, and as you said, breaks that tie. So we won't have to worry for another lap or so whether or not iRacing has to break out those special rules for tie breaks. All right. So real quick here, Morgan, let's take a look at where we were the last time our Volkswagens and Toyotas were on track. We're going to start off with the Toyotas, where they last met at Summit Point Raceway just about 2 weeks ago, and Caleb Patry was your winner over Beans Forster. And you know, just as we were taking a look at the differences here in qualifying, well, Caleb Patry's margin of victory over Beans Forster, 47 1/1000ths of a second. So it was pretty darn close in the race too. Kyle Robertson managed to bring his car home in third, and looking to see if Kyle is in the field right now. He is. He's currently qualified third fastest and not that far off the pole. Then we had Jeff Jacobs from the SCCA Foundation. He checked in with us at Summit Point, and he finished in fourth with Caleb Pocock rounding out your top five. And thankfully, Josh has had the points there up on the screen waiting for me, and you can see how close it really is. Actually, can you bring up the T3 points here, Josh? There we go. It's still incredibly close because Caleb Patry and Beans Forster right now are tied for the championship lead at 46 points. 10 points back from there is Kyle Robertson. And then we've got a tie for fourth position, and that is Josh Justice and Michael Snow, as they are both at 31 points. And then just out of the top five is Andre Jameson in sixth. Now we can switch over to Touring 4, where at Summit Point Raceway, Trenton Kramer took the win over Seth Spolman. Margin of victory there, 88 1/1000ths of, or probably 88 hundredths of a second, with Miles Crabb finishing in third, with Megan Overstreet and Gary Winters rounding out your top five. And there's your point standings right now. While we don't have a tie for the championship currently after 2 rounds, we've got a single point separating Trenton Kramer and Seth Spolman, 42 points to 41. And then Miles Crabb is only another 3 points back from there, with Megan Overstreet and Jacob Schilling currently tied for fourth with 30 points. So much like we saw in Spec Miata, really tight running here in the touring car classes. But again, only two rounds in the books out of 6.
And yeah, as we were going over the point standings for these two classes, Seth Spolman has taken the pole position in Touring 4 in his Volkswagen Jetta. So it seems like tonight could go a long way in deciding how this title race is going to go.
That's right. And so, as you said, Checkered Flag is out on the session with Spolman taking the pole. Crabb, Nichols, Schilling. We're watching Megan Overstreet on her last flying lap, looking to see if she can improve upon a 2:35.93. Currently, she's only, I think, about 1/100th of a second or so off of Schilling. Actually, less than that, 7 1/1000ths of a second separate her from Schilling, and that would be the difference between starting on row number 2 and starting on row number 3 as she comes out of the final corner. And let's see if she improves on her last lap as she comes across the line. And Megan Overstreet, yes, she improves, but not quite enough. Look at that. Yeah, 7 1/1000 thousandths of a second separating Schilling from Overstreet. Over what, 3.5 miles?
2.5 minute lap, and it's 7 thousandths at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's insane how close they are, as we got 3 drivers still circulating on track, but Caleb Patry was able to eke out. He was a 3/10 gap. It's now a 7 or 8/10 gap. So Caleb Patry was able to find some pace towards the end of that session, and Kyle Robertson is actually gone 1/1000th of a second faster than Beans Forster for to take over second place in T3.
That's right. So Robertson's going to move up to the front row, knock Forster back, and the difference there. We were so worried about the qualifying times and the difference between Patry and Forster. We didn't conceive that Robertson would slot himself right in between, and he pips Forster to second on the grid by 1/1000th of a second. Pretty amazing here. As Murphy Nichols, I think he is based on where he is on the track currently. He is just I think putting in a cool down lap or maybe an extra practice lap here as we're getting ready to get everybody gridded up, and yeah, I think he's checking out the differences between the front wheel drive Jetta and the Miatas going through that hairpin.
Yeah, it's another thing. It's a unique aspect to the Esports Racing League where you've got 2 back-to-back races, and you jump out of, if you choose to do the first race, you jump out of that race immediately into qualifying. You might get 2 or 3 minutes of practice depending on how fast your computer loads. But yeah, you jump out of race into qualifying, and let's have you tackle the grid here, Greg.
All right, sounds good. Let's look at our starting grid for tonight's second race. We'll start off with the Toyotas. I'll pick them up, and actually we do have them gridded up here with a split start. Toyotas up at the front, Jettas at the back. And so we'll start with the Toyotas. Caleb Patry, your pole sitter, with a qualifying time of 2:31.719. Kyle Robertson will start to his right. Then we've got Beans Forster. He's going to start on the inside of row number 2 with Andrew Wozencroft starting 4th. Then Michael Snow and Josh Justice will make up row number 3 with Charles Vaccaro and Mark Sherman starting 7th and 8th, making up row number 4. And then finally, Matt Snow will start 9th. You want to pick up the Jettas, or shall I keep going, Morgan?
I'll tackle the Jettas here, Greg.
Alrighty.
So we've got, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Seth Spolman is a first-time pole sitter in any Ray Esports category. So big congratulations to him as he takes the pole in Touring 4 tonight with a margin of 71 thousandths of a second over our outside front row in Miles Crabb. They're followed up with Murphy Nichols in 3rd, leading the second row to the grid with Jacob Schilling and Megan Overstreet, all of which are separated by 500ths of a second. So another very close pack right there. Trenton Kramer will start 6th with Joaquin Effinger and Wayne A. Buttermore. The last of the people with times will start on the 4th row of the grid with Gary Winters, who I'm not sure has gridded yet, but Gary Winters,
I'm showing him as being in the session here, so we'll see. Although I'm not seeing Matthew Snow in his Toyota out here for the session. So we've got the pace car underway, and with that, in our short pace lap here, Morgan, let me speed read once again. I'm going to talk about our sponsor for tonight's second race of the evening, and that is Grass Paddock Motorsports, who provides Mini Cooper race car rentals, trackside support, and coaching at tracks all over the eastern half of the country, and provides podium-capable rentals for B-Spec, the fastest-growing class of racing in the SCCA for 3 years running, and it's now the 4th largest class in the SCCA overall. Grass Paddock has a unique approach where their race cars are located near the track you want to race at instead of being in a centralized location, and that way you get to avoid paying large towing fees. Come join us at Grass Paddock Motorsports, where Grass Paddock is not about our location, but about our attitude. For more information, visit www.grasspaddock.com. And of course, the folks at Grass Paddock Motorsports, they are bringing us the Grass Paddock Sim to Track initiative, where they are going to be giving away 2 free rides, one to a licensed competition racer and one to a driver who wishes to become a licensed competition racer in one of their Mini Coopers for the seasoned racer to enter and run in a a sanctioned bodied competition, whether it be SCCA or Grid Life or NASA. And for the driver that is looking to get a license, well, it'll be a ride at a registered licensing school. All right, so first, our Toyotas are on the front straight. They're waiting for the green flag. Caleb Patry, Kyle Robertson, your front row. Patry to the inside in that red, white, and black machine. And then Kyle Robertson in the green 215 to his outside. As we get the green flag, it is in the air, and they're making their way up Big Red. Our Jettas are coming out of turn 20 now, but before we get to them, we'll take a look coming up the hill, and Beans Forster, he's going to try and follow Caleb Patry through. Robertson goes and sweeps around the outside, as we also see Mark Sherman in the black number 18 sweep along the outside, as they all now start to get in line. Our Jetta is still 2 by 2 by 2 coming down the hill. With currently Miles Crabb, your new leader. Our pole sitter, Seth Spolman, in that yellow number 42 machine. He slots back to second in the Jettas, and already the Jettas starting to come up on the back of the Toyotas.
And yeah, we're starting to see everybody, like we did in the Miata race, we're starting to see everybody kind of go single file for a majority of this pack. Just going to try and make it through the first lap. Megan Overstreet looking for moves on Trenton Kramer, but Caleb Patry's got a nice little advantage already over Kyle Robertson and Beans Forster, so he's going to try and separate himself out. The interesting thing here in the Miata race was that the draft goes back to about 1.8 seconds, and these cars, the GR and the Jetta, are about the same. It goes back to about 9/10 to 1 second, so it's a lot less powerful, but the Jettas are going to start to overtake the back of the GR field here. They might even start to bump draft a little bit, because the Jetta, like you said in the open, it handles very well in straight line, to say the least. So they've got a little bit more torque, they're getting better runs off the corners, and they have a lot more top end than the GR86 Cup cars.
Yeah, and you can already see where we just had Miles Crabb draft around Mark Sherman's Toyota. Murphy Nichols looking to do the same, and getting a little bit bottled up coming through turn 12. Murphy Nichols getting around our pole sitter Spolman, but they are now side by side as they come through turns 13 and 14 as things tighten up there. And we'll see. You know, again, we saw Nichols also, much like Huffman, much like Crabb in the first race, very aggressive, not letting any pass go without a response. You know, but now when you take a look at Miles Crabb kind of mired right in the middle of the Toyotas, if they do that, I mean, it might create a very large issue or problem for them to get back up to our leader.
Yeah, it will make it a very difficult venture for these guys, because the GRs will be quicker through corners, but you'll just catch them in a straight, and depending on the pace differential, that could play into the wrong. It sounds great, but it might not actually help you, as we're going to see Beans Forrester's going to try and push Kyle Robertson back up to Caleb Patry. They're just within drafting range, but if Caleb has a good run through the S's, he could very well break that toe. And here we're seeing a little bit of that multi-class racing that we've got between T3 and T4. The Jettas and the GRs starting to mix it up. It'll be interesting to see if Miles Crabb can keep some GR Cup cars in between him and Seth Spolman and Murphy Nichols to kind of give himself a little bit of a buffer. But right now there's 2 cars in between.
Yeah, because what I was thinking about here is as Spolman and Nichols are trying to find a way back up to Miles Crabb, there is absolutely no reason for Mark Sherman and Josh Justice to let them through. They're in a fight of their own right now for 8th in the Toyotas in the T3 class. And they're certainly not gonna just lay down and get rid of their fight in order to let 2 Jettas get around them. It's just just not something that you're going to see here. Wow, we see how Crabb is able to go over the apex curbing at 11 at the hairpin, and Josh Justice in his Toyota doesn't do it as gracefully, Morgan.
No, the Jetta kind of just eats it and spits it back out, where the GR gets smacked in the head and knocked down. So Beans Forster going down the inside of Kyle Robertson, and is able to get that move done heavy on the brakes into as we're coming into the stadium section. It's a almost 2.3 second gap up to Caleb Patry. So Beans Forster's going to have to put together a couple of really, really good laps to get back into the draft of Caleb.
Yeah, indeed. I think Forster probably saw his race slipping away already. The longer he stayed back behind. Kyle Robertson there is just behind them, though. Great little fight now unfolding, and this is for fourth. Andrew Wozencroft and Michael Snow. Wozencroft in that white and red number 80 machine, and Snow coming down the inside as they come under braking, going into turn 19. And Snow running a little wide. Probably would have picked up a 1X there, I think, but again here, and wow. As Wozencroft loses the rear end going into the final corner. Snow with not much of a place to go, but goes right into the quarter panel of the number 80 machine. He's got a lot of damage onto the front end of that car, and Andrew Wozencroft, he's still looking for a time and place and space to rejoin the field.
Yeah, it was a very unfortunate incident there. Looks like Wozencroft just lit up the rears a little bit, and very, very smart rejoin. But Michael Snow lost a hood and has a very deformed front end of this car, so he will have some very negative straight line impacts here. And I'm not sure about the straight up handling of the car, but it's looking good for Charles Vaccaro as a little bit of a sitting duck up ahead, much easier to pass.
Yeah, I was going to say that that damage there is probably going to affect, certainly affects Snow as he comes onto the front, or probably comes onto the back straight out of the hairpin. Here is, I don't want to say he's going to be a sitting duck, but at least Vaccaro is going to have a little bit less work to do in order to get up to him. And frankly, there is, you've got Miles Crabb directly behind, still in the draft. And look at this, as Seth Spolman and Murphy Nichols have worked their way clear of those Toyotas, as with Wozencroft going around, I guess it became somewhat of a non-issue there for the Jettas. But Spolman, he's still got a long way to go at this point. He's got about 1.7 seconds up to our class leader.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Miles Crabb has a little bit of a draft off the back of Charles Vaccaro, where Seth Spolman running on his own. Murphy Nichols is falling off the back a little bit of him. Trenton Kramer's not able to get in and help. So a lot of these guys they're just out here running on their own. It'll be very difficult to run down the pace that Miles Crabb has. And as I said, he has a draft. Charles Vaccaro, his drafting partner, has gone wide into the heavy braking zone. And now there's another car in between the leader and second place in the T4 field.
That's right. And so just as we were talking about Vaccaro trying to work his way up to Michael Snow, and perhaps it having been made a little bit easier given all the damage that Snow has to the front end of his car, Vaccaro puts the machine around coming out of turn 12, and that now puts one Toyota right in the middle of that Volkswagen battle. And let's jump back up to the front of the field here with Patry. I think the last time we checked in, the gap was about 1.8, 1.9 seconds. It's now over 2.5 back to Beans Forster, as Patry continues to knock out fast laps. That last time by extended his lead by about another 0.3 of a second. And Forster's looking to be under attack by Robertson. He hasn't been able to shake that green number 215 car.
Yeah, it looks like Kyle is, after Beans went through, was kind of just sitting back and like, you know what, if you want to go past, we'll try and catch with you in the lead, see if that works better. But now Beans has not really made many inroads, and now it looks like that car is a little bit unstable. It doesn't look super comfortable with it, and Kyle may just be sitting back and waiting until we get to the latter stages of this race where he can set up a move and pounce.
Yeah, well, you know, we talked about how wonky the setup appeared to be for Forster during qualifying, you know, and during I was gonna say a short qualifying session. He was out there for less than the total 15 minutes. You know, he may start to see the car come to him, but here, as we're only working lap 4, it certainly hasn't come to him yet.
Yeah, and we saw him coming out of the hairpin on this lap, 2 black strips of rubber trailing the car as he got onto the throttle through the corner. So it looks like that car is being very loose and is only going to start to get hotter as the race goes on.
Yeah, indeed. If we take a look here, thanks for throwing this up here, Josh. Not the hottest day in Austin, Texas. Ambient air only about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the track temperature's going up though. It's just gone up a couple degrees up to what, about 108 degrees. So still not terribly hot, but the more it goes up, I think the more trouble Beans Forster is going to have.
Yeah, and in my experience, anything above 93, 94 degrees gets to be fairly greasy. So once you get above the 100-degree mark, 100 degrees feels pretty much the same as 135. So there's not a whole lot of grip, and you have to be very precise about what your inputs are so that you're not exceeding the limits of the tire. You see a little bit of Beans Forster getting slide and lateral load through the corner as he's getting on the throttle. It looks like it's a lot post-apex, so he's getting the car into the corner well, but it doesn't look like it wants to get on the throttle real comfortably.
And that's interesting, because I think the one thing we noted during qualifying was he was actually having trouble getting the nose in to corners, and then was still having issues getting the rear end out. And I'm wondering, so that with the Toyotas, you do have the ability to set the the angle of attack on that rear wing. You've got a couple different settings, and I'm wondering if he's maybe got the rear wing trimmed out all the way to maybe get a little bit more straight line speed on the back straight, and perhaps Robertson hasn't gone that aggressive.
That is definitely a possibility, because there are, in my experience, building setups for these cars. You get 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and 15 degrees. Those are your real options. Anything more than that is, it doesn't really help you at all. It turns the car into a battleship and slow in a straight line. But 5 degrees, I've found, is usually about the happy medium, and that's the lowest you can go. So It could be, with the track temps hotting up, that Beans opted to go for maybe 10 degrees, or maybe leave it the same, and it's just kind of not really gone the right direction.
All right, let's take a look here now at this battle for this is now the battle for second in the Jettas, and it is no longer a 2-car race, as Seth Spolman has some issues coming out of the hairpin. It's still Spolman and Nichols, but Trenton Kramer in the 444 machine, he's joined the party as well. And he's going to enjoy the big hole in the air that's being punched just ahead of him. And there you go. Trenton Kramer moving all the way down to the inside to driver's left. Can he get close enough to outbrake Spolman at least, as Nichols really drives deep, too deep in fact. And now it looks like Trenton Kramer is going to take over second position, moving from 4th to 2nd. And we've got another person joining the party. That's Megan Overstreet as well.
Yeah, Trenton Kramer inheriting the 2-for-1 deal there, goes from 4th to 2nd in the space of a corner, but it looks like Miles Crabb has really checked out from this field, as he is your leader in T4, but this is a very fierce 4-car battle. Trenton Kramer leading Nichols, Overstreet, and Spolman, our pole sitter tonight. So it'll be interesting to see in the last 7 minutes of this race. We've got about 2 or 3 laps to go, how this will shape out.
And interesting watching them as they what they do to get the rear ends of these cars to rotate through some of these corners there. We saw the coming in the 19, the little quick stab of the brakes by Trenton Kramer. We saw maybe a little bit of trail braking there from our leader, Miles Crabb, going into the final corner into turn 20 here. And but as you mentioned, he is more or less checked out now from the rest of the Jetta field with almost a 5-second advantage. And he still has Charles Vaccaro there as his rear gunner if need be.
Exactly, yeah. So he's got some help if Trenton and Murphy and anybody in this pack can make it up to him. He's got a little bit of a buffer. But like you were saying, the different driving styles to make speed out of this car. In my experience in driving it, it's very difficult to drive because it's got the old tire model. Or not old tire model. It's got an older
the
ABS
original
model.
Tire model.
Yeah, the original tire model. It's got a really old ABS system, which if it's on, you go straight. If it's off, you get some turning. So it's a balance between nailing the brake pedal, going into a braking zone, and then as soon as you start to put wheel into the car, rolling out of the brake pedal. And it's
and just kind of release the pressure quickly. Yeah.
Exactly, because once you get the ABS and you're turning, you don't really turn anymore. It just kind of goes straight. And I think that's what happened to Murphy. He got in a little bit too deep, tried to get into the corner while still on the brakes, and ABS said, have a nice day.
Yeah,
so
And these VWs, you know, as they get modeled, very much like in real life, they've got the engine pretty much right over the front axle, even, you know, right up to the very front edge of the radiator there. A lot of nose on a lot of weight on the nose, and if you get too heavy and too hard on the brakes, they are going to just plow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the other thing is because, like you said, it's got a lot of nose weight. We'll have to table this. Kyle Robertson is closed back into Beans Forster, and it looks like Beans is a lot faster through the first half of the lap, but Kyle Robertson really closes all of the gap back down into the stadium session and under the brakes. So interesting to see the two maybe differences in setups and differences in strengths here, but. Big track extend there from Kyle Robertson. Be worried about a slowdown there, but he's carried a good run. Doesn't seem to have hurt him at all, and he's going to try and go down the inside of Beans Forster into turn 1.
All right, as they now come across the start-finish line and head up the hill, Robertson, he does have position, and you can take a pretty shallow entrance to this corner and still be able to track out. And we see there Robertson very neat and tidy coming out, goes to cover the nose of Forster's car and manages to hold him off as they come down the hill. And so this is the section of the track, Morgan, where you said that maybe Forster is a little bit better through there, and you saw where Robertson ran wide. And I would say as long as Robertson can keep Forster bottled up behind him and get out of the hairpin.
Big netcode incident there. That was unfortunate. Beans does the gentlemanly thing and lets Kyle Robertson go back through, and they're still going as a tandem. They did not really, lose much time relatively. They're still as a pack, and they're still going to keep going.
Yeah, so we'll see, and they pick up again here coming up to the hairpin, and so now we're going to be getting to the section of the track where Robertson maybe is a little bit stronger than Forster. We'll see if Forster can stay in touch as they get ready for their next lap. And I was going to say, just as that was happening, we saw Robertson push wide coming through turn 5 as everything there started to tighten up. And I was just going to say that as long as Robertson can keep him behind coming into the hairpin, he might be safe. And well, now we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. We'll watch to see if Kyle Robertson is able to extend this gap. Looks like he's going a little bit defensive, but this seems to be where he's been strong. A little slide on entry from Beans Forster. And the other thing that I noticed with Beans' car during that incident is he actually got some brake lockup. So that tells me that he's gone ahead and turned the ABS off in that car, which is an interesting play.
Well,
but
yeah,
if
we
you like that,
saw that from Robertson too. And I wonder if that was more just a slide after he got hit. But yeah, good little fight here again from Nichols and Trenton Kramer in the battle for second in the Jettas in the Touring 4 class.
Yeah, definitely going hammer and tong at it. Nichols is about 4:10. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I can't see. Nichols is actually leading this pack of Trenton Kramer. They're fighting very close. They're about 7.5 seconds.
You're not colorblind.
No, I might not be colorblind. I might just be blind. But Murphy Nichols, 7.5 seconds off of our leader, but defending very hard from Trenton Kramer. And this may bring Overstreet and Spolman back. Oh, and it looks like Overstreet has had an incident and is now back into the pits of this race. So interesting turn of events there.
All right, we should have it queued up here, and we'll see exactly what happened to Megan, as I believe we are working our lap. Well, actually, with Patry out there, I think we'll probably have one more lap to go. Let's see what happened to Megan Overstreet as they came out of turn 18, started to make the run into 19, as she ran a little wide. Nothing wrong there. I just think some internet connectivity issues, and poof, she was gone.
That is a shame after her double win last week, but we are on the final lap here, so we will have to see. We'll have to see how this plays out.
Yeah, let's jump up to Caleb Patry, and he's all by himself at the moment, and he just ran the fastest lap of the race, Morgan, here on lap number 7, putting in a 2:32.1, almost 4 seconds faster than the next car behind him. And we'll track him as he's making his way down the back straight now.
Yeah, he has really just kind of took this race by storm. And it looks like that he might have had a little bit of a mistake on this lap because that gap looks a lot smaller as we're
Yes,
seeing
it
Kyle
does.
Robertson go very defensive on Beans Forrester. And
Yeah.
he's going to be able to maintain the position, goes defensive again as we're going into the stadium section. Going to be very difficult for Beans to make a move. We saw him be very confident on the brakes into this upcoming corner in the Miata. We will see if he can try and do it again. Robertson goes defensive. Beans to the outside, is not able to get the car down to the apex. Robertson gets the exit, and it'll be very difficult now. Beans is going to have to get a little extracurricular with where he wants to do the move now.
Yeah, Beans are starting to see some of that front end push that we saw in qualifying again here over the last 2 laps as they have now just 2 corners remaining here. Caleb Patry, you said it, Morgan, had about an 8-second advantage, and it suddenly was whittled down to 3.5. But it's not going to matter now as Caleb Patry makes his way out of the final corner onto the front straight. He's going to take the Touring 3, the GR86 Cup win. Kyle Robertson and Beans Forster, they're battling it out here on the front straight. And Robertson, he's going to hold off the 231 to finish second. Forster will bring his car home in third. And then we've got this battle. We've got here our leader, Miles Crabb, coming out of the final corner in the Jettas, and directly behind as Miles Crabb takes the checkered flag to take the win in Touring 4. It's Murphy Nichols, it's Trenton Kramer. Kramer comes out wide, tries to get past the number 5 machine, cannot get it done. Murphy Nichols, he's going to finish second here in Touring 4. Trenton Kramer will bring home the bronze. Seth Spolman, your pole sitter tonight in Touring 4, will finish just off the podium in 4th.
Yeah, and it's an interesting note to point out is Miles Crabb finished 4th overall.
Yeah, he made his way through a number of Toyotas. I mean, we had a few that had issues. Matt Snow, who had all of that damage after having his run-in with Andrew Wozencroft, he did finally bring that car back to the pits. Did not complete the race. Josh Justice had his issues as well early on, and yeah, but great run for the Jettas there to finish up right towards the top of the order. All right, so let's take a look here, and we're gonna start off, I think, here with finishing second. Actually, well, he's sitting in the booth. He started third. Let's do this. We're just gonna bring in our leaders, our winners here tonight, Morgan, so we can hopefully get out of here by the bottom of the order. Let's talk to Miles Crabb, driver of our winning Volkswagen Jetta tonight here at Circuit of the Americas.
Hello, Miles. It's another win for you, and finished just off the podium overall, but taking the win in Touring 4. It seemed like you were able to really just control this race tonight. How was it just kind of going out and leading?
It was nice compared to the last race. There's a little bit of the full SCCA experience of kind of just dealing with the faster class with the slower drivers. Not, they figured it out. They're actually going a lot faster at the end and let them go on the last lap to have a fight. But no, it was very much just don't make mistakes. And once they started fighting behind me, I knew I had a good shot. That's about how I wanted the MX-5 race to go. And so that I'm extra irritated now about the last race, because if I won that race and this one, I would have won in every car we've ever used in the Ray Esports stuff, I think. One of the seasons I missed, we might have run something that I didn't drive in. But anyway, so I need that MX-5 win now.
Well, I'm hoping that we can chase that later on in the season. That would be a very impressive accomplishment if you could get that done. But nevertheless, very, very consistent, very well done drive. Is there anybody you'd like to say thank you to?
Yeah, I mean, kind of a broken record. Thanks to everybody for broadcasting. Hi, Mom, hi, Dad. It's me again. And thanks to Stevie for hosting it. And special thanks to all the people who donated to the cause to kind of keep the league going, keep it broadcasted. And thank you for doing that.
Yes, we definitely appreciate if you went out and donated to support the league. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Miles. We hope to see you again next week.
I'll be here.
All right, there you go, Miles Crab and Morgan. I think we're gonna have to break out the USF 2000 car for Miles.
We might have to.
Because I don't think he took a win in that, but I could be wrong. I'll have to go back and look. All right, let's now bring in our winner tonight in the GR86 Cup Cars and Touring 3 class, taking the win, Caleb Patry.
I'll let you go ahead and tackle
All
this
right,
one, Greg.
so Caleb, congratulations first off, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your strategy going in, because there were precious it looked very close between you, Kyle, and Beans coming out of qualifying. And so what was your thought going into the race here to separate yourself out and maybe break the draft early?
Biggest thing for me was just to run consistent laps. In practice and in qualifying, it took me a while to actually work up to get the lap times I was having. I'd be on a good lap and then I'd make a mistake here or do an off track there and whatnot. So it was, I just knew I had to be consistent, and if I could be consistent, then I could start pounding laps and pull away.
Well, there you go, and pull away you did. Didn't have to contend with any traffic behind or any traffic ahead. So who'd you like to thank tonight for your win?
Certainly Steve Ray and everybody who helps put these races on. Apex Racing TV. Shout out to Greg, Josh, and Morgan for their awesome commentary. And my parents, my family for watching and supporting.
Very cool. And so I understand that you've got a new race car that you're putting together. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that before we go?
I do. So I picked up a 8th generation Honda Civic Si a couple weeks ago. It already came with quite a bit of mods, like coilovers, air intake, exhaust, and a tune. All it really needs is a roll cage, safety gear, and a couple of tweaks here and there, and it's going to be a full-fledged STL car next year.
Very cool. So just a couple months removed from I guess the early demise of your Acura at the June sprints. Great to hear that you're going to be getting back out here next season. So congratulations on your win tonight, Caleb, and hopefully we'll see you back in the Toyotas next week at Sebring.
Yeah, for sure. I like Sebring. It's going to be a fun race.
Very cool. All right, everybody, your winner tonight in the GR86 Cup Cars and Touring 3, Caleb Patry. All right, so Morgan, let's see about wrapping things up, and I think I've already, given away the plot a couple times here tonight. Next week, as we get to the next round of the Ray Esports Racing League, we're going to be heading down to South Florida, actually to Central Florida, not South Florida. Going to be going to Central Florida, where we're going to have our touring car racers, the T3 and T4 classes, joining us once again, and we're going to have the return of Spec Racer Ford, and then in 2 weeks, Halloween night, it's going to be spooky. Going to be at Road Atlanta for the Spec Racer Fords and Spec Miata in conjunction with the Atlanta region of the SCCA's American Road Racer Champions. So for Morgan Burkhardt, for Josh Wilkie, I'm Greg Ginsburg. We'll see you next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, You owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.